Welcome back. You're still watching The Social Network. Now, the other big story that's doing the rounds today on Twitter as well as other social media is, of course, cricket. And for all good reasons, because yesterday India was, of course, expecting to hammer Australia in their third test match. But, of course, the rain washed that match out completely. But today they have started, and joining us to talk about cricket and everything else with it, we've got with us Nishant, who joins us from the Czech Republic. He's the editor of alternativecricket.com. Thank you, Nishant, for joining us. Finally, you're making your debut on The Social Network. And of course, in the studio, we've got with us the evergreen Gaurav Sethi, who's the board member of Board Cricket Crazy Indians. Nishant, Gaurav, I mean, I think as you know, a cricket novice in many ways, I find this whole story about the 4 Aussies being dropped because they haven't done their homework absolutely hilarious. Nishant.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting week for the Australians. They dropped 4 of their better players for this test in Mohali, which means that they were only left with a squad of 12. Now, it is quite an interesting management technique, and it does seem that this is more of a culmination of a sort of malaise which has infested itself within the Australian setup within the last few months. And Mickey Arthur and Michael Clarke have come under a lot of fire in the past couple of days for their decision, especially with Shane Watson flying home for the birth of his child. There has been quite a lot of disarray surrounding the Australian camp, and especially following the performances. Their on-field performances in this test series have been bordering on pathetic, and even this late order collapse that they had today leaves India with the upper hand in this test and leaves them primed to face a 3-0 defeat or 3-0 loss in this series within 4 days.
Gaurav?
Yeah, hi Nishant, good to see you here.
Hi Gaurav.
Yeah, it's been really funny, I think, for all of us who've been following the last few days of Australian cricket, and there's so much banter. I think everything has got down to banter now, and within the Aussie camp, they seem pretty clueless.
Yeah.
So the way they've reacted is, you're 2-0 down, what do you do next? Now, this is not something that you'd see teams doing when they're 2-0 up. So here you are, you're trying to correct, or you're trying to say, hey, what do you do? And they've taken it's an own goal of sorts. You've taken extreme measures. They're the laughing stock.
Yeah.
Pretty much all over the social media. I've started cartooning after weeks. You know, I found it difficult. There was nothing funny left. It is purely inspirational. Whatever is happening out there is funny.
So Aussies, own goal, inspirational, and that too in cricket, that's pretty deadly.
Yeah, so you've got what Nishant said, that they're 2-0 down. You could be 3-0 down, but what does happen is you start doing things which you normally wouldn't. So Michael Clarke, who has been quite happy coming in at 5, he scores a lot of runs there. Suddenly there's so much pressure because everyone is trying to tell Australia what to do. And this is a terrible place to be in, because India has been there before, where you start letting media and people like me and Nishant deciding for you how you play.
Yeah.
So you've got a coach who pretty much has sent 4 guys packing.
Yeah.
One guy goes home. He's the vice captain, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as if you had all guys who were immaterial to their plans. You had their main bowler, Pattinson.
Yeah.
He's not playing. You've got a vice captain. He's out of the picture.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 guys who were benched anyway, but they could have played.
Yeah.
So what you are looking at is a team which is doing a lot of talk. You know, how much talk can you do? And that's all these people, you've had them on TV for the wrong reasons now.
Yeah.
And you've got a coach who's pretty much running the show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nishant, is you know, a lot of people I was talking to earlier were also talking about the fact that how is it suddenly that coaches are becoming so dominant in cricket, in a sense? Is that a sense that you're getting as well?
Well, I think it's quite there's quite a contrast in styles throughout the whole international cricket setup right now. If you look at the likes of Mickey Arthur, who's moved to Australia, he's trying to South Africanize the Australian setup, and you can see he's trying to base the current Australian setup on exactly what he achieved with South Africa and exactly what Gary Kirsten is achieving now with South Africa. You can look to England as well, another highly organized setup they have there with Andy Flower and Ashley Giles there, and you can see that there's some sort of leadership. There's a big leadership group there. The coaches in these countries are empowering their players to take responsibility and make decisions for themselves. And that's the key towards international coaching, because they already know the techniques, they already know where they're good and where they're bad. It's about getting them into the mental sort of state where they can perform consistently at the highest level. And if you look towards South Africa, They've got coaches like Paddy Upton, Russell Domingo, who have been working with Gary Kirsten for a very long time. They're very good. They've got a very good team ethic, and that's where they have conquered the cricketing world right now. And you can see just how badly that's lacking in Australia.
Okay, all right. I just want to ask you, Gaurav, as well. Is this obviously this is like a golden moment for India as well, in a sense, isn't it? Who's the one who's benefiting the most from this Australian Cup in that sense?
Well, Australia would think that they would benefit because nothing has been going right. So you end up trying to do extremely drastic things, which is what they are doing. So it's still very early days. They could benefit. They end up looking really bad so far.
Yeah.
But they've had a day which hasn't been so bad. They still haven't been bowled out.
How was today? Like, how was all of this planning out?
They started off pretty well. In fact, they looked as if they'd get off even better.
Yeah.
So they haven't been bowled out. They haven't even declared so far, which they have done in the past. They've declared for 9 wickets. So you still have one of their batsmen at the crease.
Yeah.
India has not batted yet.
Yeah.
So it's how this entire fiasco, or even if you want to call it a fiasco, how it pans out in the next 4 days, how this test match is determined,
yeah,
would really be down to how we take a call on what has happened with the Australian group.
Nishant, I want to ask you something. There are many people who say that perhaps discipline is more important than whether you actually win or lose a match. Is that, do you think that would be the argument that Australia would want to give?
Well, in a sense, I think you're absolutely right, Kashish. I mean, from my own point of view, and I think the Australian point of view, going back towards to even when Greg Chappell was coach of the Indian side, his emphasis was on process rather than results. The sad thing is that in this results-oriented sports world where everybody wants immediate results, it's kind of hard to balance the process along with results. Everybody wants short-term results. Everybody wants to win the Champions Trophy and World Cup. Nobody's interested whether you're planning for a World Cup in a few years' time. They want to win the World Cup in 2 years' time. They want to win the next World T20. They want to win the Champions Trophy in June. So if you don't show those results, then ultimately, as a coach, sadly, you will get fired pretty quickly, and you'll find yourself out of a job if you don't get results. So yeah, ultimately, discipline is the core of a side. You need a team of you need to bring a team of superstars together if you're the coach, and that takes a certain skill, which, as I mentioned before, the South Africans seem to have perfected.
Okay. Just really quickly, Gaurav, last comment. Do you think it was right for the coach to have made this public?
Well, coming from, say, a team like India, where nothing is public, where players are gagged when they do speak.
Yeah.
It is a fresh thinking where you are doing something like this. Of course, it looks really stupid. Which was when players start speaking, and everyone has been speaking.
Yeah.
Shane Watson has gone back. He's spoken about how he feels about it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Michael Clarke has been speaking to him, and he's trying to woo him. He's gone back to Australia.
Yeah.
The captain is trying to woo his vice captain.
Yeah.
You still don't know how it pans out.
Yeah.
But if you want to be frank about sport, let everyone speak. It could be a lot better.
Okay, fair point. Transparency is always a good thing, but really the number of jokes on Homework and attached to this particular match are really absolutely, the puns and the jokes on social media absolutely going crazy with this, obviously expectedly, and perhaps not such a bad thing for him because he was home in time for the delivery of his son William. Is that right, Gaurav?
Yeah,
Well, okay, well, that's unfortunately all we have time for on the social network today. Thank you, Nishant, for joining us from Czech Republic, and as always, Gaurav, thanks for coming in. But for now, it's a wrap today. Join us same time on Monday on the social network at 6:30.